Just $5 is your prize for creating the patent. I work for a company that makes video equipment and do optical technology research. Richard, my employer, harassed me while I was working with the development team to develop patents. In spite of this, I was able to secure a high-level industry patent. But Richard only offered $5 as payment for creating the patent. I've had enough of a man who has been benefiting from our labors demeaning me. Many thanks. I accepted the $5 and sent in my letter of resignation right away. I quit right away after using up all of my paid leave and launched my own business. Perhaps since I severed negative connections, good fortune came my way right away. Then I got a phone call. John Anderson is my name. My age is 51. I am an engineer at a suburban-based company that makes video equipment. I create, produce, and market printers and camera lenses at the company, working to become the leading video equipment producer in the United States while creating new items. I put a lot of effort into learning new technology every day. But inventions and discoveries are not always simple. I experiment by making mistakes over and over again. While I was talking to the development team, Richard, our boss, entered the room. "John, how's the new lens development going?" Richard inquired. My response was, "It's still in the testing phase. It's an issue if people enter the development department's lab wearing their shoes because it's packed with sensitive equipment and crucial test data." Richard, however, stormed in carelessly. "Why are you taking so long? We'll lag behind our rivals at this slow pace," he screamed. We apologetically said, "Yes, I'm sorry," while he persisted in berating us. "Listen up, if you slack off, that's your business, but I get reprimanded from above. Remember it and move quickly to develop a patent." Richard looked happy as he left the department after ranting at us to his satisfaction. We all exhaled in relief when he was gone. "He tells us to work while he's the one kissing up to the higher-ups and slacking off," I complained. Despite being 8 years younger than me, Richard's strong academic credentials led to his promotion to boss. Despite being the head of the development department, he has very little expertise of optical technology because he did not complete a technical institution. There wouldn't be any complaints if that were the only problem. However, he started acting arrogantly and yelling at subordinates of all ages as soon as he was elevated to the position of head. From our point of view, we're just being yelled at despite our hard work, even though Richard believes he's giving us a motivational speech. He is also extremely submissive to his bosses, kissing them up all the time to move up the corporate ladder, even though he is tyrannical to subordinates. We find this great lack of integrity to be frustrating. It's one thing to play along with the bosses, but he shouldn't use us as pawns to advance. When he was moved to our development department, we all complained because we felt like we were dealt a short straw. Every year, our stress levels have been rising. It's been especially awful lately because he's constantly storming into the lab and pressuring us to create patent technologies. Another employee created and patented a novel control mechanism for the management system a few months ago. Consequently, the president praised the developer and Richard, who was in charge of it. Richard reportedly thought, "If we develop more patent technology, my evaluation will improve further," after receiving acclaim. He has been putting pressure on us to accelerate development ever since. For his own fame, Richard is making us put forth a lot of effort. We strive for technological advancement, but Richard has made our working circumstances appalling. Unpaid overtime is common and excessive work is assigned. He says, "You're leaving while I'm still working," if I attempt to leave on time. He uses his authority as the head of the department if someone objects. The majority of staff despise him. As an engineer, I find the development of new technology thrilling and socially useful, but Richard's haughty attitude irritates me. Additionally, our company's name improves in the patent rankings if a patent is approved, which increases our recognition. The statement that the company's reputation is carried by our development department is not hyperbole. We therefore conduct tests and durability evaluations on a daily basis. However, it also wasn't a smooth day. I murmured, "Today didn't work again," as the findings didn't support the premise. Recent tests have not proven successful, and no high-quality data has been gathered. A gloomy atmosphere pervaded the premises, and the staff felt trapped. There were dark circles under everyone's eyes. Some of them had oily hair from spending the night, and their lab coats were rumpled. I haven't been getting enough sleep as a result of working overtime, and I'm completely worn out. I've only gotten 2 or 3 hours of sleep on the last train home for the past week. It's tough to do well in research when your head is so cloudy. In addition, I've been feeling chilly since this morning, and I'm in very bad shape. I checked my temperature since I thought I might have a fever. The temperature was 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Concerned about my health, the staff recommended that I depart early. Yeah, I'll ask Richard for permission to leave early. I then made my way over to Richard's desk. On his computer, he was working. He typically stays out of the lab as a manager. His primary responsibilities include managing staff, signing paperwork, supervising the department, and interacting with subordinates. I'd walked over to Richard, who was looking serious as he typed. I yelled out to him, "Hey, Richard," but he didn't even bother to answer. I attempted to call out to him once again, assuming he was preoccupied with his work. "Excuse me, Richard." At last he answered, "What are you looking for?" "I'm occupied." Even though hearing busy made me hesitant, I forced myself to ask to go early. I said tremblingly, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well and would like to leave early." Richard glared at me and scowled. "What about your work for today?" "Although it's not quite complete, I'm not." My temperature, which I just took, was 14 degrees Fahrenheit. I showed him the history and pulled out my thermometer. Richard grabbed my thermometer as I was trying to demonstrate how ill I felt. "You're attempting to deceive me into skipping work. Somehow, you must have manipulated this temperature." Richard placed the thermometer beneath his own arm after saying this. "My F is that. Don't talk, just observe." My sophisticated thermometer can take a temperature reading in less than a minute. The thermometer beeped as soon as he placed it beneath his arm, indicating that the measurement was complete. Richard grinned and pulled it out. "Observe. My temperature is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm doing a great job. You don't need to go early because this high temperature of 104 degrees Fahrenheit isn't a major concern." The used thermometer was thrown back at me by him. He appeared robust and full of energy, even though he claimed to have a temperature of 95 degrees Fahrenheit. He's most likely one of those people whose usual temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. However, my typical temperature is 96.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and it could become deadly if it gets any higher. In order to rest before things worsened, I planned to return home early. "I'm not feeling well at all. Let me go early, please. I've already made plans for other staff members to take over my responsibilities." My head started to feel hazy as I was speaking. I begged Richard to let me leave early even though I was in this situation, but he didn't listen. It is impossible for someone who is scarcely moving to be that ill. Being an engineer does not automatically grant you preferential treatment. The employees around me gave me a worried look when Richard roared. "In any case, I disapprove of your early departure. Return to your department and get to work." When I realized that more begging would not result in a better answer, I staggered back to my department. The staff became irate on my behalf and threw me down on a row of chairs when I informed them that Richard had denied me permission to depart early. Despite their own exhaustion, they were concerned about me as I was on the verge of unconsciousness. I was so moved by their generosity that I passed out as my eyelids became heavy. I slept like a log and felt a little better when I woke up a few hours later. I discovered that everyone had divided up my job when I woke up. I'm grateful. After a little rest, I feel considerably better. Let me find a way to pay you back." With a timid smile, they replied, "No problem." After working in the development department for many years, I felt a sense of rivalry and friendship with the staff. But even though I felt better, I wasn't completely recovered. Richard entered the lab just as I was ready to leave on time. When he arrived, the otherwise serene mood immediately became strained. John was doing his job perfectly. You see, he scoffed, I knew you weren't that sick. I was upset to see him chuckle, since he didn't think his subordinate was ill. I asked forcefully, annoyed, it's time to quit already. What are you in need of? You have work for me. By tomorrow, compile the information in these documents. Richard then turned over a pile of more than 100 documents. The workers gaped at each other. By tomorrow? We've already completed the work for today. You can finish it with a bit of overtime. Well, I'm counting on you, he said, leaving us to do the work without helping. We had no choice but to pick up the documents he left behind. The employees told me I should go home, but I couldn't rely on them that much. Even though I wasn't feeling my best, I didn't want to worry them any further. I'm fine. I'm feeling better now, so I'll go grab an energy drink. After that, we worked together to finish the tasks Richard had dumped on us. We finally finished around the usual last train time. I staggered home on shaky legs. Just as I had recovered, my symptoms came back. Though we completed the work, Richard's constant issues were wearing me down. Unless we improve this terrible work environment, we'll never have a good night's sleep. A week after my illness, I used my precious PTO to fully recover. Feeling great, I threw myself into work to make up for lost time. Thanks to the proper rest, our experiments went smoothly, and we successfully developed new optical equipment. Optical devices like lenses and mirrors use the reflection and refraction of light. These allow us to observe tiny particles or objects that the human eye cannot see. Optical technology can be applied to microscopes, telescopes, and video equipment, making it useful in many fields. This technology is crucial for future discoveries for humanity. The optical device I developed quickly got patented and produced top-level video equipment in the industry. With this optical technology, we can capture finer particles than conventional products, and it will greatly contribute to medical and photographic technologies. When the experiment succeeded, we cried with joy together. Our efforts had finally paid off. My name will remain in the patent rankings as a developer. The company's performance soared after obtaining the patent. We received numerous licensing contract offers from various companies, and sales skyrocketed. Moreover, under the Employee Invention System, I also received a reward as the inventor. Although the patent rights belong to the company, I still get a significant share of the profits. Depending on future performance, I can expect not only monetary rewards, but also promotions and company-sponsored overseas studies. This will allow me to gain more experience as an engineer, killing two birds with one stone. I'm excited. With the reward, I can work even harder on the next experiment. But first, I want to celebrate the patent approval with the employees. They helped me without hesitation when I was exhausted. As a thank you, I want to treat them to a drink. Hey everyone, are you free tonight? How about we go to a bar together? Just as I was about to ask everyone if they were free tonight, Richard came into the development department. He always shows up at the worst times, making me furrow my brow. But this time, he was grinning at me. John, you did a great job. The president has a reward for you. Really hearing the word reward, I couldn't help but jump up. The employees around me watched warmly. I'm glad to have contributed to the company. I'll keep striving forward. Yes, that's the spirit. Now let me give you your reward. Even though he said it was now, he didn't have any certificate or anything like that. As I wondered where it was, Richard took an envelope out of his pocket. He turned the envelope upside down, and its contents fell out on the floor. When I followed the object with my eyes, it was a $5 bill. The $5 blew away in the wind. Seeing the $5, I couldn't help but mutter. When I turned to Richard, He was laughing hysterically. Your reward for developing the patent is $5. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing, but when I did, a surge of anger welled up inside me. What do you mean $5? The reward should be at least $1,000. You're the developer, but I'm the manager here, so I'll keep the rest of the reward from the president. What? He constantly forced us into excessive work while he relaxed and took the best positions. Even though we endured poor working conditions for the sake of technological progress, this is what we got. Keep up the good work, or if anyone has a problem with me, you're free to quit. I don't need rebellious people. He's using his position as a manager to continue reaping the rewards. I can't tolerate this any longer. I made up my mind. I walked over to the $5 on the floor, slowly crouched down, picked it up, and put it in my pocket. Thank you very much. I'll make sure to use the rest of the reward wisely. With that, he left the department immediately. The employees rushed over to me, worried. Are you okay? This is unacceptable, they said, sharing their anger at Richard's actions. I gently spoke to them. I'm sorry, everyone. I've reached my limit. I took out a blank sheet of paper and a leave application form from my desk. On the blank paper, I boldly wrote my resignation letter. The employees were shocked, trying to persuade me to reconsider. If I stay under Richard, I won't be able to do the research I want. I didn't become an engineer to be exploited. Everyone was stunned by my words and looked at each other. After finishing the resignation letter, I went straight to Richard. He was chatting happily with a female employee. What is it, John? I'm busy right now. Richard, thank you for everything. Here is my resignation letter and leave application form. Without waiting for a response, I handed him the 2 documents. Richard blinked in surprise at the suddenness of it, but gradually his expression turned sour. Wait, I didn't hear anything about you quitting. Suddenly, I don't accept this. The company has no right to deny an employee's decision. Goodbye. Ignoring his attempts to stop me, I used up my remaining paid leave and resigned. Immediately after leaving, I started my own company. Although it's not an impressive office building, I rented a room in an old building. There, I began developing optical lenses. Along with the optical technology research I wanted to do, I created many prototype camera lenses. I showcased the finished products at a domestic optical summit. The summit attracted various companies from both inside and outside the country. There were some very minor companies, as well as major camera and medical equipment manufacturers known to everyone. As the sole employee, I actively handed out business cards and promoted my products and achievements. While many listened to what I had to say, one company, in particular, showed a strong interest. He turned out to be the president of a foreign camera manufacturer known for being at the forefront of optical technology. He seemed to like my achievements, and after several discussions following the summit, we advanced to talks of a sponsorship deal. If our research yields good results, they will provide financial support to my company. I never imagined that I would get in touch with such a major company, let alone progress to sponsorship talks. Having had an incredibly good start shortly after founding my company, I focused even more on product development. With the financial support, the company's facilities improved significantly. I even had enough leeway to hire employees, and everything was falling into place. A few months later, I received a call on my cell phone. Hello, this is John Labs. John, it's me, Richard. The caller was none other than Richard. Richard, long time no see. Recently, I had a good deal with a client, so I was in a good mood. Hearing my cheerful tone, Richard also responded energetically at first, but then he suddenly got angry. Are you doing well? Oh, I didn't call to chat. What do you need? Richard cleared his throat. I think I was a bit immature back then. A lot of time has passed, and we can both be calm now, right? I had no idea what he was getting at, so I responded bluntly. Richard, please get to the point. I'm busy with work. Let me be direct. Come back to the company immediately. He wanted me to return to the company. Well, no, I don't want to. When I answered immediately, he demanded in a harsh tone, why not? Actually, I started my own company after resigning, so I can't come back. What? Are you trying to spite our company? I didn't start my company to compete with his. I did it to pursue my research and secure funding. Besides, it's been quite some time since I resigned. Why are you calling now? Then he hesitated a bit before starting to mumble. It seemed like a difficult topic for him to discuss. Actually, ever since you left, development has stalled. He admitted that after I left, the company struggled with new product development. But then a major publisher contacted them. They wanted to do an interview because of the groundbreaking patent technology we developed. Richard feared that if they found out I wasn't there, they'd start asking questions. If that happened, the publisher might turn to me for the interview, and I might reveal some inconvenient truths, likely about Richard's harassment and other dark company matters. If the harassment was exposed, the publisher would dig deeper into the company's affairs. Richard wanted to bring me back before that happened and act like everything was fine. That's why he called me in a panic. It's a well-known publisher with significant influence, but they also handle celebrity scandals. Just come back to the company. I didn't know if he called on his own or was told to, but my response was clear. Why would I listen to your orders? Absolutely not. What did you say? I heard the sound of a desk being slammed from the other end of the phone. An interview would raise the company's profile. It's a great honor. Then you should take the interview, Richard, as long as you can handle any questions that come your way. Richard had never been involved in development, so he wouldn't be able to explain the patent. He probably didn't want to embarrass himself. Just come back. I'm sorry you went to the trouble of calling, but I must decline. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. Hey, wait. Without waiting for a response, I hung up. Immediately, there's no way I'm going back to such a terrible workplace. I muttered after ending the call. I blocked all further contact from Richard, but he showed up at my company. Since he couldn't reach me, he resorted to negotiating in person. Just as he barged into the lab with his shoes on, he tried to storm into my office. I firmly told him off. Don't enter someone's house with your shoes on. If you don't listen, I'll inform the company. Richard looked bewildered, likely because he came without informing his company. I would never do something as barbaric as entering with shoes on. He quickly started to take off his shoes. When did I say please come in? With one shoe off, Richard looked puzzled. I told him not to enter with his shoes on, but I hadn't said he could come in. Unsure of what to do, he looked at me for guidance. I decided to make it clear today, so he wouldn't come barging in another time. I'm just finishing up some work, so please come to the room we use as a reception area. I offered him a pair of guest slippers. Okay, even a small company like this has a reception room. And by the way, your entrance is quite cluttered with shoes and bags. Just ignore it. Looking relieved, Richard quickly changed into the slippers. I led him to the reception room and had him sit in a chair. The reception room was just a small one-room space with a table and a few chairs for guests. This way, he wouldn't see my workspace. Richard, feeling uneasy, kept looking at me. I think you know why I'm here, so I'll get straight to the point. Come back to the company. Not wanting him to stay long, I didn't offer any tea. I sat down in the chair across the table from him. How many times do I have to say it? I'm not coming back. Richard gritted his teeth in frustration, but then smirked. Then how about if I offer you a reward? What? I couldn't help but ask, surprised by the unexpected word. Richard noticed my reaction. You got mad when I gave you that $5 coin, right? It was just a little prank. I intended to give you the actual reward afterward. The time he was referring to was when I decided to quit the company. However, Richard never showed any intention of giving me the proper reward. Even if he was telling the truth, it was too late since I had already resigned. Why didn't you give it to me right away? Well, you got mad, and I lost the chance to give it to you. Richard suddenly shifted the blame onto me. So, if you come back, I'll give you the reward. How about it? Will you reconsider? I closed my eyes and pondered. If I said yes, returning to the company would be possible. With a company that holds top-level patents, I might be able to develop more new patents with hard work. But going back would be playing into his hands. The company's rules state that paying the reward is an obligation, but whether I return or not is my decision. I'll take the reward, but I won't return to the company. I looked him straight in the eye and firmly declared, so just pay me my reward and let's say goodbye for good. Richard started trembling and breaking into a cold sweat. Don't be so harsh. If you come back, there's even a chance of promotion. He tried to lure me back with sweet words, but my answer remained the same. No matter how many times he asked, I would never return. Why don't you recruit other talented engineers? There are plenty of them in the US. I suggested that he support the company by collaborating with someone else, but Richard's face darkened. Then he suddenly buried his head in his hands. I've been trying to do that. He ruffled his hair, looking deeply troubled. Actually, a while after you left, the entire development team resigned. Well, that's something. The employees who worked on the patents with me had also left. The main reason for their resignation was Richard's harassment. After I left, Richard continued to force excessive work on the remaining employees, trying to achieve results. This angered them, and they all boycotted their work. Then they all resigned at once. Currently, no one is in the company's development department, so development has come to a halt. Without development, not only patents but also in-house product development would be impossible, severely impacting sales. If you don't come back, the company is finished. My promotion won't happen. So, in the end, you want to bring me back just for your promotion. Richard looked at me with the eyes of a lost puppy. Please, John, help me. Help the company. How? I met his hopeful gaze, but had no intention of returning. This situation is entirely your fault. Don't you understand that? I'll pay you properly, so please come back. How am I supposed to explain this to the president? Richard pleaded with me, almost in tears. This is the result of you belittling engineers. Reflect on your actions. I stood up from my chair and opened the door to the reception room. That's all I have to say. Please leave. I won't move a step until you agree to come back. Richard shook his head from side to side and refused to budge. Even when I tried to forcibly lift him from the chair, he stubbornly resisted. Seeing how obstinate he was, I sighed. Okay, fine. Are you going to consider my request? Richard looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I don't have enough strength alone, so I'll get some help. What? I opened the door to the reception room and called out toward the workspace. Come help me get the boss out of here. Immediately, several men entered the reception room. Seeing them, Richard's eyes widened in shock, and he began to tremble. You guys, what are you doing here? Why? Because we're employees here. They were my former colleagues from the development department. Fed up with Richard's harassment, they had resigned and joined my company. Thanks to everyone, we're more productive than when we were at the old company. It turns out we didn't need a boss who just nagged us. We all laughed together. However, Richard couldn't accept the situation. This is perfect. You all need to come back to the company. That's an order from your manager. As soon as he gave the order, the employees turned serious, feeling the pressure. Richard swallowed hard. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm the manager. Even if you're a manager, anyone who harasses the company is unnecessary. Please leave immediately. But Richard had no intention of leaving quietly. I exchanged a glance with my employees, and we lifted Richard off the ground. What are you doing? Put me down. Ignoring his commands, we carried him to the entrance. We opened the front door and forcibly pushed him outside. We will report your unannounced visit and all the harassment you've subjected us to. Goodbye. Wait. Listen to me. Richard hurriedly stood up and tried to get back inside, but I quickly shut the door from the other side. We could hear him yelling and pounding on the door, but no one opened it. All right. Before we get back to work, I need to report this to the company. With that, I called my former company. They were shocked when I reported Richard's actions and learned that he was the cause of the mass resignation in the development department. They apologized to us profusely. Apparently, the president was unaware of Richard's harassment and promptly sent me the full amount of my overdue reward. Soon after, Richard was summoned by the president and severely reprimanded. Refusing to admit his wrongdoing, he was given a disciplinary action, but that was only the beginning of his troubles. Employees' complaints led to the exposure of his harassment in a major publication, revealing the toxic work environment. As a result, the company's reputation suffered among clients. Richard was also sued by employees and ended up paying over $100,000 in damages. Finally, the president, citing his incompetence, fired Richard, who had contributed to the company's financial struggles. After getting fired, Richard found a new job, but it turned out to be a terrible workplace. The company had an excessive quota of 500 tasks per day, forced employees to stay until the last train, and didn't pay overtime. On top of that, attendance at company drinking parties was mandatory. Naturally, Richard quickly wanted to quit and submitted his resignation, but his boss tore it up right in front of him, preventing him from leaving. He sought help from acquaintances, but because of his past misconduct, he had lost their trust and received no assistance. Unable to cry or get help, Richard was now suffering in a toxic work environment himself. His only way out was to run away in the dead of night. But escaping didn't guarantee happiness. A rotten person will face the same fate no matter where they go. Meanwhile, I have been thriving since starting my own business. I've been steadily gaining sponsors, and the company is on track. I've received numerous requests to give lectures on optical technology at universities, making me highly sought after. Recently, I also published papers on optical lenses and self-published a book. Thanks to the royalties, my income is stable while my company is still growing. I aim to obtain more patents and achieve further progress.